difference.
Welcome to the 2022 Annual Congregation of the Protestant Community Church, also known as Cathedral of the Woods. My name is Deb Smith, and I'm President of the Board of Trustees of PCC. And thank you for joining us either in person or virtually today. It's a blessing that you're with us. The Bible verse chosen for this year's meeting comes from Hebrews 10, verses 24 through 25. And let us consider how to instruct one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see they drawing near. A reminder that our mission statement is an inclusive ecumenical faith community purposefully seeking to be caring, faithful disciples of Jesus Christ through worship, study, prayer, and Christian service. Our church's vision statement is, the Protestant Community Church will be a church that encourages continual spiritual growth through discipleship, which includes study, prayer, worship, service, reflection, music, and arts. At this time, I call upon our senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. R. Timothy Meadows, to the opening prayer. Okay.
Let us pray. God, as we convene to do our business, guide us with your wisdom. Fill us with your grace and love. Make us instruments of those things to each other and to our world. These things we pray in the name of Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please join me in the congregational to the opening prayer. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my life. A friendly reminder, please stand, state your name if you're speaking today for the benefit of our Secretary, Mary Clark. Mary, can you please stand so everybody knows who you are? Thank you. time, we would like to entertain any corrections or additions to the annual congregational meeting minutes from last year's meeting. In your packets and emailed to you earlier this week, you received a copy of the minutes from last year's congregational meeting. Are there any additions or corrections that need to be to the minutes at this time? Not seeing anyone raising their hand to make additions or corrections. Is there a motion on the floor to accept the 2021 congregational minutes as stated?
So moved.
Thank you, Suzanne Murray. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Carol Wallstrom. All those in favor of accepting the 2021 congregational minutes, please indicate by raising your hand. Those not in favor? Abstentions? The motion carries. For those of you joining us virtually, it's amazing to me that this is the third meeting that allows members to join us in this way. I would like to thank the Estacio family, Logan Jones and Brian Pistone, for being the virtual worship team. We continue to have members and visitors, and this is an important ministry. Thank you for all the work you do to allow folks into our sanctuary virtually. This summer and fall have seen a return to normal gatherings and what makes our church special, a sense of community and fellowship of Christians. Just last week, the JA and Red Team Youth hosted the traditional spaghetti dinner for their families and the Board of Trustees. It was a time of sharing and fellowship and excellent hospitality and food. Additional opportunities to come together are coming up in November, and certainly there will be even more to follow. You'll hear more of that from Linda Hoffman. Our cathedral choir is back, and so is Katie Teal, as choir director. If you have any inclination or gift for singing, please see her to explore joining the choir. All are welcome. Also, special thanks to Reverend Tim Williams, who has started a Bible study class held on Sunday evenings in the Pod Building. I would encourage you to check it out. It's a great group and a wonderful time of Christian study and fellowship. I would also like to thank the members of the Board of Trustees for answering the call to serve the Lord through our church. We're a humble group that aspires to serve the church and the congregation, and above all, Lord and Savior. I hope that if you have the opportunity, you will reach out and talk with a board member and thank them for their time and effort. They are an incredible group of people, and it is my happy pleasure to serve alongside them. We need you to join us. I know some of you hear that small whisper to serve in a big way. There are a million excuses not to serve, but there's an important reason to serve. And that reason is that you want to keep the community in the church at PCC, and you want to help your church family. Without board members to guide the church business, we literally cannot operate the church. Today, I had someone come forward and offer to join the board. We need more of that. We really need you to step up and help. Please prayerfully consider serving. If the board's too big of a commitment, please think about joining the nominations committee or any number of committees that work behind the scenes. We all have fun while working together. And above all, please listen to that whisper that you hear just as I did. Many members of the congregation continue to have their time, talent, and treasure. You will hear in the Vice President's reports today the details of what continues to move forward through your steadfast and faithful support. Thank you. Later in our meeting, there will be an opportunity to hear your thought on the motions that the board brings to you today. The board seeks your guidance through your voice and vote on these important matters to the church. Again, more on that later. There are no recommendations from the nominating committee, as it has largely disbanded. We're hopeful that some of you will come forward to serve in this role in the church. However, should you be interested in a position on the board, I will get you the job descriptions and review. Please just ask me, Pastor Meadows, board member, or the office for a copy. Once again, I'd like to call upon Reverend Meadows so that he may share the pastor's report for the year. Reverend Meadows?
Let me begin in what I think is the most important place, and that is to simply say to each of you what a joy it is to serve as your pastor. It is a privilege, it is my opportunity. I am grateful for this place and for what it does for this community and for myself and my family and what you do for each other. It was offered by a political figure. The statement is nevertheless true. It was not intended to be political. President Biden said recently, the pandemic is over, but we still have a problem with COVID. Though you have seen many things come back online in recent days in our church life, and though we largely believe the pandemic is over, we still have a problem with COVID. I want to share with you some thoughts about how we have been impacted and continue to be impacted, at least in part, by COVID. There are people who are no longer with us. Many of those people were looking for a reason, and COVID became the reason that they took. Some of them have gone to other places. Many of them have simply chosen to use the time as time for themselves. There is a second group that COVID brought along, and that is the group that got out of the habit or routine of attending church. Hopes and prayers and a little contact with some of these people suggest to me that they may get back into the routine at some point, back into the habit. But many of them have simply gotten accustomed, as with the first group, to having the time they used to spend with us. There is a third group that is somewhat smaller for us, but nevertheless a factor. This is the group for whom live stream has become permanent. They find it to be the best way that they can worship, the most comfortable way that they can join us. And in fact, I hear from some of them that we are not the only service that they engage on now that they have this tool, but there are some other services that they engage in as well. And there's an even smaller fourth group that brings attention, and that is that some of us have had significant health changes unrelated to COVID over the period of the COVID time in which we live. Their lives have changed dramatically, and they are simply unable to hear. And for many of them, the live stream has been a lifeline, a way in which they can still worship, but they are not present with us. You may have some other findings and ideas, but those are the four groups that I know have been most impacted by during this unprecedented time in our world and in our lives. Whether you're asking the question or not, I want to answer the question for you: what can I do in light of these things? I think three simple words that I'll go into a little bit, but the three simple words are these: invest, invite, and volunteer. Invest not only your financial gifts, though those are important, but also your time. When you can volunteer, when you can be present for worship, when you can be present for other church activities, your presence is one of the most precious gifts that you can give to church and your church family. Invest your time. Invest your talents. Invest your financial gifts as a way of helping going forward. That second word, invite, is to simply say to you, those who you know who may be looking for a place of worship, who may be looking for a church family to call home. Statistics have told us forever that people don't come to churches because of pastors. People come to churches because their friends are there. Because people that they know who benefit from the church are there. You are the most important link to growing the family that we love so much. And volunteers. Deb and I did not coordinate this at all, but it seems that we have a similar message along this vein. Churches run on volunteers. Churches cannot run without volunteers. God has gifted you in particular ways so that you would use those gifts to be a part of our church life. And to echo something Deb has said already, one of the reasons that we particularly need volunteers is on our board of trustees. For nearly a year, we've had 2 positions that have remained vacant, simply because there was no volunteer to fill it. We've had a number of people who sought to recruit others and gotten the same answer each time. Usually a polite version of no thanks. We heard over and over again, oh, I don't like church politics. You know what? None of us church politics. But in order for a church to run, there has to be a system that inevitably is going to contain some politics. The other things I hear occasionally, not too often, but occasionally, is I don't like the way things are going. I think the board needs to make different decisions. My response always is, maybe you need to be a part of the board. Oh, no, thanks. I don't want to do that. But the answer is, if you want to see things done in a certain way, right? Or if you will see things done differently, your time and your effort as a volunteer is pretty much the only way that is going to happen. This board works diligently to do your business day in and day out. This board seeks to make wise decisions and has made wise decisions. This board is the lifeblood of the day-to-day operation of our church. And they do their best with every decision they are asked to make. Whether you like politics or not, I ask you to consider being a part of this team. Maybe your influence is something they need. Maybe their influence is something you need. You might be surprised how those 2 things coming together would not just change our church, but might also change you. So that call one last time, and I promise it. Best, invite and volunteer. When you've done those things, you've done all that you can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tim. Now we come to the ICCC report, or International Council of Community Churches. Carol Wallstrom, our liaison to the International Council of Community Churches and longtime dedicated member of this congregation, provided a report for our review. Somehow it did not make it in your packet, but it is now distributed loose. We have an important relationship with the council, and we seek ways to deepen that relationship. I invite Carol to the podium to deliver her report.
This is the day the Lord has made, and we are rejoicing and we're glad in it. Couldn't help myself. I've said that every time I've been up here in front of you, and it is a glorious day. You have the report, so I'm certainly not going to read to you because you're very smart people. But it is worth reviewing what in the world the ICCC is, which is at the top of the report. The ICCC is an international, intercultural, interracial fellowship of churches which seeks Christian unity in local, national, and world relations. As people devoted to following Christ, we, the ICCC, and indeed PCC, are committed to unity, to treasuring diversity, to living in faith and serving love. There are several points there on the report. There are just a couple that I would like to highlight for ICCC. As number two, as a result of a Send Us initiative from the 2021 annual conference of the ICCC issued applications for $1,000. The PCC Mission Council applied for and was awarded a $1,000 grant from ICCC, which has been used to purchase pantry items that are not donated for the pastoral program, which has helped to sustain a wonderful program. That, by the way, in Cherry Hill, when the ICCC conference was in Cherry Hill, Christian Sharon sent representatives, and they did a whole workshop on what that pastoral program is about. And that elicited a lot of talk and a lot of sharing, and other churches picked up that mission that we were successful. Thank you to everybody for that. During Lent, when we could not gather for worship, we emailed by hard copies strategically located of daily Lenten devotions from ICCC. So every day we're getting an email devotion from ICCC. These are very well received by our church family, and this been requested. Moving on down, there's an ICCC newsletter, which is 8 times a year. It's a pure of news, reviews, messages. I would urge you to take a look at it. These messages are thought-provoking, merit reading on the website. Copies are also available in the church office. Our annual contribution to ICCC is $1,000. ICCC reaches out all over the world, literally, to give aid wherever it is given. And when ICCC gives aid, the money goes directly to those in need, not to some sort of administrative branch that gets paid to disperse the money. So I am strongly recommending that the Board of Trustees review our amount contributed and increase this amount to further support the spiritual and physical endeavors of the ICCC. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Now we come to the Endowment Director's Report. As we come to the Endowment Director's Report, the Board of Trustees and the congregation would like to thank Gary Kopp for his tireless work as Director over the last several years. One of his final tasks as chair was to pass the baton to a new director and chair, John Stein. John and his family have been members of the congregation for many years. All 4 of his children have been raised in the church, and the family has volunteered extensively. It's my pleasure to introduce to you now John Stein.
Hello, everyone. I would also like to thank Gary. He did a wonderful job explaining what the endowment committee was all about to me. We're a committee that meets underneath the director. So we are just a committee. On the committee with me, I'd like to thank Diane Smith, Jay Thomas, Jim Schaefer, Rick Taylor, and also at every endowment meeting we meet via Zoom usually. Deb tries to make it, and so does Dave Stewart of Finance. So I'm not going to go on. There's a lot to talk about with what we do, and if you're ever interested, you can grab me. Also, there's no secrecy here. Everything we own on the endowment committee and all the transactions we make quarterly, Paul Wallstrom does a wonderful job of consolidating this into a fact that you can see what categories of different assets we own, and it's all open to the public. There's no secrecy. It's in the office back there, so if anyone at any time, if you have any questions, I want you to feel free that it's something that you can see us about. There is one important milestone, and I don't like to talk about dollars, figures in the church because I think it's going to be crass, but I do think it's something worth noting. And this was started in the year 2000, and through the generosity of mainly really families that had the foresight to say, started an endowment. They gave the initial investment. And since that day, through their generosity and the stewardship through all these years, 20 years, markets go up, markets go down, realize this in our own life. Money can be complicated and a hard thing, but through their stewardship is produced $1 million that they've given back to the church. And that milestone we hit this year, and that one person, I would say it's a generosity of families, mainly 2 families that gave this initial investment and all the hard work through the year. So it's something to really consider and think about. That legacy they lived on, and the church through membership has gone up and down like everything else. But that money is still there and still doing the vital work that they envisioned. So it's just something to think about.
Thank you, John. Now we come to the Vice President's reports. At this time, I invite each of the Vice Presidents on the board to come forth and deliver their reports, with one exception. Linda Estacio was unable to join us today, but she included an extensive report in the packet that was distributed by email and also today. First up is Michelle Rapinski, Christian Education. Michelle's family has been raised and grown here, and she's been active in the life of the church. I have fond memories of her daughter Stephanie, who joined today, acolyting and helping at Vacation Bible School, for example. Michelle frequently uses the nursery when it is open. Michelle.
Okay, my report's short and sweet. Sunday attendance has been up. I noticed 4 weeks ago we had 31 children, which we have not had that in ages. Andy's ideas of family dinners every month has been a big success, and I hope we'll continue so. That's it.
Now we come to Christian Ministry, and as I mentioned before, Linda Stasio is our Vice President of Christian Ministry. She's unable to be here today, but as I mentioned, I provided her extensive report. Linda goes above and beyond time after time for her PCC family. I know she's probably watching virtually, so thank you, Linda.
Yeah, she is.
And thank you, Manny, for manning the live streams today. We appreciate it. Finance. Dave Stewart has been another longtime member of the church. We're so thankful to have him lead the finance committee. However, that's not all Dave does his church family. In addition to singing in the choir, Dave is quietly responsible for the birthday cards and flower delivery ministries. Dave.
I'm on today because Barbara and I are coming over, recovering from about 8 days of COVID. We did our vaccines and double boosted, but we still got it somewhere, and last weekend it hit us both. Not going to be the article there. I tried to give background information, but there are a couple of statistics I thought might be helpful. And again, we shouldn't talk about finances in church, but guys, if we don't talk about it, we won't know it. When I look at I create a chart for the board each month that looks like this. I call it the blue chart. They might print it at home in black and white, so then it becomes the gray chart. But for me, this is the blue chart, and I try to track various groupings of what we've done. And on average, when we look at the money coming into the church, it's coming predominantly from you and me, from our giving. The pledges average about $11,000 to $12,000 a month. And then additional giving is the plate that's passed around, the money that drops in there. And also the check that people drop off at the church office, or maybe that they mail into the church office. That averages about $8,500. It can move up and down. It can range pretty strong within that number. We had one month, the month of April, where that 8,500 was 4 times that number. It was a $32,000 number. There must have been some big checks out, all right? In other words, some meaningful giving. I have to tell you that our pledges won't do it, all right? Our pledges, which are $154,000 for this year, don't cover the salaries. They cover about 2/3 of the salaries. Our salaries are about two-thirds of our overall budget. What's that, Dave? Our overall budget is $193,393. Projected income of about $357. That means we were projecting the deficit. And we skinnied down expenses wherever we can. Each one of these VPs look at their budget, and we're doing that right now for next year. And take to it with a fine-tooth comb. But we everybody's support wherever it can come. Couple of things, there's something else. I think that's about it. Just like John said, if you ever have a question about the numbers, I'll be glad to sit down, share any information I have with you, and review any of the numbers. The first time I looked at the treasurer's report, which is 9 to 10 pages, it was daunting. But I've got a handle on it now, and I can just see where monies are coming from and where they're going. So if you ever want information on that, I'll be glad to share that. And I'll take any questions now. I didn't ask if that was appropriate. Okay. If there are any questions now, I'll be glad to entertain them. Okay. Thank you. My phone's in there, my email's in there. Reach out, and I'll be glad to share information.
Next, I'd like to introduce Laurel Beck Thomas, Vice President of Fundraising and Development. Laurel and her family have been integral to the church in many ways over the decades, from Sunday school to making sandwiches through COVID and much more in between. Laurel.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to join the choir of volunteer and give and invest in money and volunteer, right? I like that one. This year we didn't make as much money as we've made in the past couple of years. We had a problem with our production license, so we couldn't do our big event. By the time we got it straightened out, which is all fixed now, it was too late to do all the work that's involved with putting together a big fund. So my thought is if you were the type of person who normally buys a table or does a donation for that, you would second my own, that would help contribute toward our deficit. I mean, that's what I plan on doing. I normally sponsor for that. I'm just going to give to the church. So that's one thing. Second thing is we're going to do our big fundraiser next year, but I need some volunteers to help do it. My husband says there's always things called idea phase, and they come along and I have a great idea for a fundraiser, or a great idea for a group we could start. Oh, you want to help, and then they fly away. So I need some good idea fairies who are ready to come in with their great ideas, but they're going to stick around and help do the work. So anything you want to do, any kind of fundraising idea you have, you want to do a dine and donate, they're not hard, but I can't do them all. Linda's been doing some funds for member care. If there's anything you can do to help contribute to either the finance or the fellowship in our church, just give me a holler. If you have a good idea, I want to hear it, but I want you to help me make it happen. That's it. Thank you.
Next to the podium, Linda Hoffman. Not only is she the Vice President of Care, but often volunteers for various events and initiatives here at church, including capital program. You often see her on campus with a grandchild or two by her side. Linda.
Good morning. So I am Linda Hoffman. I have some members of the member care there that I would to note. Nicole Gerber, Sue Egbert, Juanita Campbell, Suzanne Murray, Sandy Childress and Carol Bellstrom. They're all members of what we do. We meet the second Wednesday of every month. And if anybody would like to join us, we are more than happy to have other people come and give us ideas as to what we can do. I've been in this position just a little over a year. I'm learning constantly. Some things that I am in charge, well, I don't want to say in charge, that doesn't make me clear. I should be in charge. So we have Fellowship Hour. George is also with Fellowship Hour. We do coffee, we do tea, we do tasty treats. Great job, George, thank you. The flowers on the altar. After church, they go back to the room. People make them and they send them off to Dave Stewart, thank you. He takes them and he gives them to people that are in need. If they're feeling sad, if there was a death, if there's something. We find that out, the church finds that out, and then we disperse them. And thank you, Dave, for that. I'm sure you've done plenty in the years that you've done that. Men's breakfast is no longer men's breakfast. It's now called Fellowship Breakfast on some Saturdays. Saturday mornings, I believe it's 8:30. We have breakfast, and then there's a speaker or some sort that, of a person that tells a story. The nursery. The nursery is an ongoing, off-going situation. It seems that when we have it open, nobody comes. When we don't open, somebody always wants to be there. If you know of anybody that wants to be there, you can get in touch with me. Michelle and I both have said that we will work together and open it if it's needed. We have no issues doing that. I'm here almost every week because of my friends come with me. The fundraisers that I've done so far, we did a dine and donate at Iliano's. We made $252, and I believe everybody that was there enjoyed the food. I know I did. The insulated grocery bags, I purchased 75 of them. I still have about 15, maybe 12, 15 left. If you ever need them for groceries, please let me know. I'm sure that we can help you out. We did a dynamite at PJ's a couple weeks ago. I have not gotten an end result as of yet. Boscov's Day, I don't know if anybody went. I know I sold about $255 of tickets. That was a good success, so that goes into our budget. Italian dinner is next weekend, possibly. At this moment, we do not have enough people to make it productive and make it worth doing. If anybody here, like 30 of you, would like to make sure that you come for an Italian dinner, please know today is the absolute last day because we still would have to get all the food and do everything. But if we don't have enough, we can't do it. If you become a member of Member Care, get in touch with me. Have a great day.
Thank you, Linda. Our next vice president is a very active member of the Life Church with a passion helping others. I had the pleasure of coaching her son in Pre-Rite 13 and Rite 13. Our vice president of Mission Council, Diane Smith, no relation. Diane.
Yes, you know.
Hi. As Carol said, I'm not going to do my report to you. You can see it. You're smart people. But I do want to highlight a couple of things that were I did not mention because I knew they were going to fall under our purviews. I would like to thank and acknowledge Suzanne Murray for running our successful Castle program. As you know, she was honored earlier this year by the Daughters of the American Revolution for her commitment to community service. Suzanne told me this morning we have, at this point, have served approximately 1,400 casseroles and approximately 1,000 sandwiches for Christian Caring. So thank you to all volunteers who come on space and help us with that. And because we are making so many more casseroles, I invite you to invest in that program and volunteer. We have a lot of fun. It's a lot. Usually we hang out longer on Saturdays than.
Sometimes it's dark when you.
Yes, yeah. I'd also like to say thank you to the ICCC as mentioned in her report for the generous grant that we received. It has really helped us out in sustaining the program and as far as buying the staple items that we need to give to volunteers to put along the stuff that we have received through the Dutch wagon donations. I'd also like to remind everyone that the 2 new freezers and refrigerators in the Todd building are from the Christian Caring Center. They've received a sizable this year, and because of the snafu with the health department, it looked like we may not have been able to continue the program. They supplied the freezers and have helped us keep the program, because they would be a great loss if we didn't help them out. I'd also, as a member of the endowment, I'd like to thank John Stein for taking over the position of endowment chair. I'd like to thank Gary for his help. And I'd also like to thank Walt Fletcher for his expertise and guidance to help us on the endowment board make the financial decisions that help manage the endowment in the best interest of this church. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Walt. Up next, one of the most popular gentlemen on campus. Some days I'm sure he wishes he were not so popular. Seriously though, Brent makes up the entire property committee, Brent Shuffle. If you notice between a flathead screwdriver and a Phillips head, please see Brent and see how you can help, even in the smallest of ways. Now it's my pleasure to introduce the very hardworking Brent Shuffle. Brent.
Good morning, good afternoon, or whatever. I have a report in there, and you can read it and everything else, but I have a couple questions that I'd like to ask. One is, how many people think that this campus and the buildings are clean and beautiful? Please raise your hand. Okay. How many of you at home live in a residence or a home, or that you have to perform no maintenance whatsoever on it? Please raise your hands. If you give me the address or no, seriously, you know, the problem is we have a number of buildings in the campus, and it's a lot of work. We don't section anymore, so it's a lot to do. Somebody said to me this morning, you know, how did the campus get cleaned up this past week? Okay, for the leave day. Of course, a couple people come in and we did it, okay? But we need help, and the term volunteers we use a lot. I realize when he has a lot of things, but I'd like to thank 2 people, okay? One is George, okay? George on campus responds to something probably every single day of the week, that maybe a maintenance item or that, and it's funny because when Deb says popular, I get a call or a text every day, except on Sundays, okay? And it's always a lot of little things, difficult, and we're going to have to address a lot of issues on campus, which is going to require volunteers or financial support for us to hire someone else to do it. The other person I'd like to thank, Gene Gerber. Gene is a carpenter, you know, at home, okay? Fix the gates and a number of other things around campus, which is a big help to me because it takes time and effort and skill. But we all live in a beautiful community, we have a beautiful church, and all. It takes a lot of work to keep up, and anybody who wants to volunteer, of course, they have my number. Don't call me on Sunday.
Stewardship and security. While he may be last, he certainly is not least. Our Vice President of Stewardship and Security carries 2 weighty tasks on his shoulders, and he does with grace and great competence. Jim's family is yet another longtime member of the church. As his wife Lisa was in the church, so were both of their daughter, Jen.
Good morning, everybody. I want to say thank you with much gratitude to everyone that is making and exceeding their pledge this past year. Your pledge is the best way to let the congregational leaders know how much financial support you can anticipate. For 2022, the church received 84 pledges for a total of $156,000. So far, we have received $120,115 toward the total pledge amount. So we still have some ground to make up to get through the end of December, but we're on track, and know you will fulfill those obligations. As we come together, seeing the return of our ministries, such as our choirs, fellowship hour, fellowship breakfast. We've had a very successful vacation Bible school all over the summer. Rally down September 11th. The Protestant Community Church can do all this and other ministries because of your generous work. Just to bring you up to date with 2023, this would have been about as of Tuesday the 25th. We have received 24 pledges for a total of $36,402. We'll try to keep you updated throughout this pledge campaign on the progress that we're making. But I would say for about a week and a half of we're going out to the congregation. That's a pretty good mark to start on. This year we're asking all of our members and friends of Protestant Community Church to take part in the stewardship campaign by making a pledge. We appreciate your faithful gift so our church can serve the community and the larger world by helping to meet significant needs. Your gift also enables us to maintain the Brents Point, our beautiful, serene campus as a place of worship, service to our members and the community. Thank you again for the faithful investment in the Protestant Community Church. We promise to use your gifts wisely as we serve God by serving others. If anybody has any questions at this time for me, they can more than happy to ask. All right, thank you very much. And again, thank you for the pledging and what you've done.
All right, now we come to the new business pin of our agenda that we've all been waiting for. We are trying something new this year because we have a number of people who are joining us virtually. We are allowing members to vote email through Monday, October 31st, 3 p.m., or in simple just tomorrow until 3 p.m. Only members of the church may vote on these matters. When I call for the vote, please raise your hand to indicate how you're voting. First up, we have an issue that was recently discovered, which is that none of our full-time employees, or part-time employees for that matter, pay into unemployment or disability insurance. What that means is that if they should be separated from church, they're able to collect unemployment, or if they experience an illness or injury that requires them to be away from their job for several months, they cannot collect disability. We have the option to continue not to pay into these two benefits, an exempt organization, but it doesn't provide any protection for our employees. I would like to open the floor to discussion on unemployment disability insurance at this time. Again, if you are speaking, please stand, state your name for the record so that Mary Clark can record it. Yes, Lynn Pope?
Lynn Pope. I don't know if this is appropriate to ask at this time, but do we have a sick leave policy?
We do not.
Well, then if we don't have a sick leave policy, I think that should be us before we address disability and unemployment insurance.
Okay.
Deb, can I ask you to repeat the question so that it goes up on the live stream?
Sure.
Thank you.
So Lynn was asking if we have a sick leave policy. I'm not aware of one. Gary, are you familiar with whether we do or not? Because I know you were vital in together the handbook at one time.
Not aware enough to answer with substance.
Okay. So I can't answer that directly if we have one or not. I'm just not that well versed with it, but I don't believe we do have one. Do you know, Tim?
I think that's correct.
Yeah, okay. Brent? Shuffle.
I believe we met in after one of the board meeting, after one in general for sick leave policy. We haven't voted on it as a board at this point in time, but we're looking to do it for the coming year.
Okay, so Brent informs us that there was a committee which the board had appointed to take a look at doing a sick leave policy. They've drafted something that has not been voted on. Yes, Rick Taylor.
Okay, the unemployment disability insurance, is this something that the employees, would pay, or is this something church, would pay for?
The church would pay. Other questions? Comments? Dave Stewart.
I'm thinking what Lynn mentioned, which makes sense. The committee combines efforts together and then makes a response to both parts and incorporate both needs together. A question, Rick, does unemployment and or disability, is it all by the church or is it some from each? The employee are, in our work jobs, are we responsible? Does that come out of our paycheck on our various lines? I'm just one, I think we need clarification on that, or maybe you know for sure that's good.
So let me just recap for those who are watching virtually. Dave suggested a committee that was identified to establish a sick leave policy also work on answering this great question of unemployment and disability insurance. Dave also asked Rick Taylor if he knew if the monies that come out to support those two insurances are funded solely by the church or by employees also, and if he knew what the case might be in the regular day-to-day world. Rick said no, so he does not know. So it's a payroll tax is what Bennett and Brent Shuffle, that there's pays.
Also, it was not either.
Brent says they looked into it, and Brent says it's not that expensive to pay it, but it is an additional expense. And again, it is something that if something should happen to an employee, for example, if they had a surgery and a long recovery, they could not go on disability. Anyone else? Yes, Suzanne Murray.
I don't think we make a decision on this issue until these things are further clarified. And I would suggest that we table this issue for follow-up congregational meeting.
Thank you, Suzanne. Suzanne recommends that we table this until we have further investigation into both of the issues. Brett.
I have no problem with tabling the motion, but if we wait till next congregational meeting, we'll have a full year before we make a decision. This past year, we had an employee who was out a considerable amount of time, probably over half of the year, that the church helped through that period of time, which in the new policy, that person would go on disability and it would be paid by the state.
Second. So what Brett expressed that he is concerned about waiting another year for this to be addressed in the next congregational meeting due to the fact that this year we had an employee who had an extensive leave that we supported, and if we waited for another year, we may have a similar situation instead of having the state carry through disability some of that person's. Yes, Suzanne.
We call a congregational meeting at any time, proper notice to the congregation.
We can
So
call
we
a
would not have
congregational
to
meeting
wait
at any with proper notice. That is correct, yes. Lee, did you have your hand raised?
I did.
Lee Blue.
I got involved, some of you know, with the Growing With God campaign years ago. And it brought to my attention, at that point I got involved in a lot of other things. And one was unemployment and unemployment compensation. And I was astounded that frankly, there was no coverage. And so many kangaroo got bitten by a bee. And that jumped out at me, and somebody called me and said, hey, what about unemployment? And you know what? You know how to. That's been going on for years, and I really think, and I say this respectfully, that we need to look at that. And I agree with Suzanne, we don't need to wait for another year for, a congregation meeting. But boy, if we could look into that, find out what it's going to cost, and then address it, I think it'd be a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Foster?
Carol, I would like to make a motion at this time that we table this discussion and this decision so that we can investigate all the information that we, with a caveat that we will vote upon this disability and sickness leave in all of its illness and make a decision by the end of this year, so before 2023. That's the comment, which then give the board a couple of months to make a decision, or before. And certainly, I don't know whether you're comfortable virtually voting or indeed calling another in-person congregational meeting. That probably advise how we might do it. But I think given the time, and then making sure that we investigate and we can present the whole thing to the congregation, the whole package, what it would cost, and indeedly what it covers. Not just something, because a bee sting can be deadly, so.
It really can.
Investigate it all. It's just 2 months away.
Carol Wallstrom has a motion on the floor to table this with a caveat, to provide further investigation, with the caveat that this be addressed as we come together as a congregation to vote on this before the end of the calendar year.
Suzanne made a motion, I think that's basically just a friendly amendment.
Okay.
It's not a separate motion.
All right.
Yeah.
Is there,
Mine was a suggestion.
okay.
I follow up with a motion.
Joan Lewis, like the second Carol's motion, I think it needs.
Joan Lewis seconds Carol's motion. All right, this time we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion? Oh, just any more discussion? Dave Stewart.
Mine would offer amendment to say that maybe we go to the end of the first quarter next year to give the committee a real chance to together, because I don't know who is involved in it, but we're now starting with Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it's might be hard to get everybody focused on one and get information from the government or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a committee, but timing could be other. Okay, he's saying we have it, so.
Are you withdrawing your friendly amendment?
Yes.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a busy time of the board. And everyone knows. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Those opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have a motion for your consideration in the packet. It's brought by the board to amend the bylaws to include a congregational vote for our contract renewal or termination of past. It was brought to the board's attention that members of the congregation believe that they should have some say in whether or not pastors' contracts are renewed. Our bylaws, as they stand, do not include provision. It could be argued that through a vote of board members and your feedback to the members of the board is how you would be exercise your voice. However, the board would like to put questions to the congregation now. If you would have a more formalized voice in the matter of contract renewals and terminations as that applies to pastors. To be clear, written, the board of trustees would still have the final say on these matters, but a congregational vote would provide a better picture of the congregation's feelings around the matter. I'll read to you now, which was sent by email to you, the resolution. We make a motion to amend the bylaws of the Protestant Community Church of to one Board of Trustees Vice President's vote and will be taken 1 year prior to the existing contract date in the case of renewal, and 3 months prior in the case of a termination. I open the floor for discussion. Final call for discussion. Carol Bostrom.
Well, I guess I wore the shirt to be sure you could see me now. My question is would they have done similar protocol for other employees of the church? Everything is VP of Administration. Truly, this is a friendly, can you help me understand more?
Yes, so Carol's asking if this same line of thought would apply to other employees of her church. The pastor's the only one that really has an existing contract. And so, no, it would not apply to other employees of the church.
My concern would be that throughout the year, we do a review and people intimately involved, and it's, it's kept private. The people in the church don't get full understanding, and I don't think that should be made. So we would be, in a lot of cases, voting something and have a full understanding of that. And I think it should be kept that way. I think it's better to keep it just amongst the people that need to know all the information in case of something that should be kept private.
So John is making the point that since the review of the pastor that happens annually is something that takes place amongst that the vote for contract renewal and terminations should stay on the board, as many details are not shared with members' congregation. Manny.
Manny Estacio for the purpose of the live
Thank you,
stream.
Manny.
I'd like to point out that we do have a pastoral relations committee where folks can certainly talk with us about any of their concerns, and we can then share that with the pastor. That's part of our job, is to be a liaison between the two. So I'm not quite sure where that fits in, but I want to make sure that that's part of the minutes here.
Thank you, Manny. Manny Estacio out that as part of the pastoral relations committee, that committee exists to be a liaison between the pastor and the congregation. Brett Shaw.
Strong argument for privacy, okay, in any employment agreement, okay? And if we do this, we open the congregation and people start asking questions and everything, we open a can of worms that I don't think we could ever close.
Brett makes the point that there are legal regulations and criteria around revealing information, employment information to the congregation. Diane Smith.
To John's point, I would just like it to be noted also for the minutes that as board members, we receive input from the congregation throughout the year when we do these reviews. So you do have influence over how that performance review goes. That information doesn't need to be made public for obvious reasons, and as Brent said, legally too, but I just want you to know, throughout the year, we're taking comments, questions, concerns, and we all discuss that when we're preparing the review.
Diane notes that the members of the board do collect your concerns, comments, and opinions, and we do bring those to the annual review with Pastor. Carol.
To add on to John and Diane, isn't any discussion to do with contract and employment, isn't it addressed in executive session, which implies confidentiality, if for a very good reason, and that is that it's only the need to know folks who do know? My concern, I would tag on with the others, that my concern is we're getting whispered down the lane as if it were important, and it's not. That's just me.
Carol's pointing out that any conversation regarding employment is done in executive session on the board, which is still the case, Carol, and she's concerned about whisper down the lane issues. Yes.
Question. Is there another resolution changing on the board members to 12
Yes.
coming up?
Yes.
Would this, if approved, become 13 deciding vote?
I don't think the congregation acts as a member of the Board of Trustees or as president of a ministry, so I don't think that would be the case.
Does it, I think it says that it's council board vote.
Yeah.
I think in weight, I mean, we can obviously amend the motion. That wasn't the intent.
Okay.
We would have to amend it. Any further discussion? Do we motions on the floor to amend the motion?
I have a motion to amend this, Laura Thomas, sorry. If the deciding vote was the one from the church, that would be the congregation, it could be, easily be the deciding vote. And since they would not have all the information, that would be right. I think that their opinion should matter there, but if it was a tie, it shouldn't be a congregation vote who doesn't know facts breaking the tie. So I would like to amend it to remove that they can, like, that it is one, I don't know how to change that.
Okay.
Sorry. When it was 15, it was because the worst it would be made.
Okay, so Laurel is suggesting that we delete the portion of the motion that reads equal to one board of trustees, the president's vote and will be. So that now the motion would read, we make a motion to amend the bylaws of the Protestant Community Church of Medford Lakes, New Jersey to allow a congregational vote with regards to the confirmation or termination of the pastoral contract. The Board of Trustees will continue to have the final vote. However, congregational vote will be taken one year prior to the existing contract date in case of a renewal and 3 months prior in the case of a termination. Correct.
You still have the same problem when you bring it to the congregation and talk about it, kind of thing. You eliminate privacy issues all the way through, so to pass it in any form, as amended, again, you open up a can of worms that you can't close. So to me, it's not vote for the amendment or for the bylaw change. It should just wayside.
Further discussion? Yes.
Steve, it's really just a point of order, I suppose. One is the first is supposed to be, the action taken in this vote would be to amend the bylaws in this way, or have the trustees work up the bylaws. Not for my bylaws. Sorry, I didn't find them. I know they're in a stack somewhere back.
Same.
But I'm used to seeing red lines and an ordered context for something. And this made me a little cold in the sense of substantial. So, to stay on my point of order, I'm not sure what this is. Is this a consensus of the congregation? Is this an actual amendment by the amendment provisions of our Bible? And if so, is it structure?
So, Steve Gibbons is asking a point of order, which is how does it into the bylaw and changing the bylaws. I agree, it sounds like from what I'm hearing in the congregation, that more work needs to be done on this, if it's to even be brought to the congregation. So I would suggest that we entertain a motion to table this as well.
You can't.
I'm sorry, your name again? Kristen. Yep, a second from Brent Schoffel. Okay, those in favor of tabling the motion? Those against? Abstentions? show one abstention. The motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have a motion for your consideration in the packet. It's brought by the board to amend the bylaws to include a congregational vote for contract, oh, sorry, that's a different page. For a motion to allow the Vice President of Administration and VP of Outreach positions to remain vacant for 1 year maximum, unless a vice candidate is identified to serve in either of those two roles. Someone had come forward to me today and suggested that they would be willing to serve as Vice President of Outreach. Thank you to that person. This motion is for documentation reasons, as we've had no one come forward to fill these vacancies in over a year until today. We want to make sure that the formal record reflects these exist with the full visibility and approval of the congregation. I open the floor for discussion. Dave Stewart.
Yeah. What's the reason for doing that? I'm just trying to understand. To make a statement that we approve to go to be having a VP open, is it for the getting the gambling thing for the 501c3 or whatever?
That's part of it.
Okay.
So Dave Stewart brings.
Just wondering why.
Yeah. Dave Stewart's wondering why we're actually doing this. The reason we're formalizing it is because the next motion that you'll see has to do with changing or reconfirming the number of vice presidents on the board of trustees. It seems that an application was never filed with the state for our 501(c)(3). I never get all those numbers on. We are a nonprofit institution, but we're not formally recognized by the state. What that means is that when Laurel goes, for example, to Amazon and tries to get us set up so that people can log on and add us as an entity, an organization that gets monies back for purchases that we make, they don't recognize us. Anybody who is that is electronic cannot see and confirm that we're a nonprofit. We have paperwork, but many of these companies are now all electronic and they won't take the paper. They want to be able to look up in the state's repository for nonprofits and see that, yes, we are registered with the state in a nonprofit capacity. So in Pam Jones's work in trying to get that accomplished, we realized that there was a discrepancy in documentation and we need to make that formal congregational change. So yes, that's part of it. The other part is that because of COVID, that there has a lack of communication and extreme exchange of information, and a lot of things are being recorded in the minutes of the Board of Trustees meetings, but the board felt that this was really important and that we wanted to document future congregations, that the fact that these two positions lay open was because we had no one who wanted to fill them, and with the full disclosure to the congregation of that matter. Just a formality of transparency, if you will.
Call the question.
Call for question. Okay. Let me read the motion. We make a motion to have congregational consent of the Protestant Community Church of Medford Lakes to allow the Vice President's position for administration and outreach to remain vacant for 1 year or until a feasible candidate is identified and accepts the call to service in either of those capacities, but not to exceed 1 year without additional congregational review. Laurel Thomas so moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Suzanne Marie seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Finally, in tandem to that, the board brings to the congregation for consideration motion to amend the bylaws to confirm the number of trustees from 15 to 12 to correctly represent the composition of the PCC Board of Trustees for the 501c application. I open the floor for discussion. Last call. Seeing that there is none. Oh, sorry, you can see it from the web.
Under code, does that mean that, I know there are 2 positions that are filled, what is that third, 15th?
Oh, there used to be additional seats on the board. There aren't any longer. There's just
They were seats at large.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
seats at large. Yes.
So-
Thank you, Suzanne.
So it wouldn't really be reducing?
Only for documentation purposes.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And
You're welcome. Any other questions or points of discussion? All right, seeing none. Do you have a motion on the? So moved. Thank you, Ms. Steele. And second is Michelle Bowlby. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you all for your guidance on matters. Does anyone have any matters for the good of the order? All right. We will adjourn. Pastor Meadow closes us in prayer, so please sit tight. In the meantime, do I have a motion to adjourn the congregational meeting for 2022? Laurel Miller, and do I have a second? Ms. Tyndall? All right. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Meadows, will you please close us in prayer?
Let's pray. Dismiss us, Lord, with grace and your peace, and make us instruments such to our world in need. These things we pray in the name of Christ, our Lord.